You're taking this vitamin thinking it's helping, but it's silently increasing your stroke risk overnight. Most seniors have no idea, and by the time symptoms show, it's often too late. Stay until the very end, because the final warning I reveal is the one that could protect your brain and your future. One shocking link. We need to have a serious conversation. It's one that might feel deeply uncomfortable because it challenges a belief that many of us hold as a fundamental truth of modern wellness, that taking vitamins is an unequivocally good thing. We see them as a crucial safety net, a personalized insurance policy against our dietary gaps, a proactive and responsible step towards better health, and in many situations that can certainly be true. But the line between beneficial and harmful is not always as bright and clear as we've been led to believe, especially when we move from what our bodies physiologically need to what the market is aggressively and often misleadingly selling. The conversation today centers on this very fine line and the potentially devastating consequences of crossing it unknowingly. The subject is a vitamin that millions of people take every single day, often in staggeringly high doses, with the absolute best of intentions. It is a nutrient universally celebrated for its vital role in energy metabolism, nerve function, and the formation of healthy red blood cells. It's the go-to supplement for anyone feeling fatigued or foggy. I'm talking, of course, about vitamin B12. Specifically, I'm talking about the high-dose synthetic form of B12, most commonly cyanocobalamin, found in countless over-the-counter supplements, energy drinks, and wellness shots. For years, the prevailing wisdom, repeated by health gurus and even many clinicians, has been that because B12 is a water-soluble vitamin, any excess is simply and harmlessly flushed out of the body through our urine. This single belief has fueled a multi-billion-dollar market for energy-boosting sublingual drops, daily pills, and injections containing thousands of times the recommended daily allowance. The logic seems unshakable. If a little is good, a lot must be better, and at the very worst, it's just expensive, colorful urine. But what if that core assumption, the one upon which this entire industry is built, is fundamentally wrong? What if, for a significant portion of the population, that excess isn't harmless at all? Recent and rigorous scientific investigations have started to paint a very different and, frankly, very alarming picture. A growing body of research, including large-scale observational studies and meta-analyses published in respected, peer-reviewed journals like the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, is pointing towards a shocking and profoundly counterintuitive link. High-dose B12 supplementation may be associated with an increased risk of ischemic stroke. Let that sink in for just a moment. A substance that we actively take to protect our nervous system and boost our vitality could, in certain contexts, be contributing to the very type of catastrophic vascular event we all rightly fear and want to avoid. An ischemic stroke, to be absolutely clear, is what happens when a blood clot blocks or narrows an artery leading to the brain, cutting off precious blood flow and causing brain cells to starve and die. It is a leading cause of death and devastating long-term disability worldwide. The idea that we might be inadvertently increasing our risk for such an event by diligently trying to be healthy feels like a profound betrayal of our trust in wellness culture. This isn't about the B12 you get from your diet. It's crucial to make that distinction right away. The levels found naturally in foods like fish, meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy are not the concern here. The human body has evolved over millennia to process nutrients from whole foods in a complex, intelligent, and synergistic way. The problem arises specifically from the pharmacological doses, the massive, isolated, and synthetic amounts of a single nutrient that we introduce into our system, completely bypassing the body's natural, finely tuned regulatory and absorption mechanisms. The evidence trail is becoming more compelling and difficult to ignore. One landmark study published in a major cardiology journal followed a large cohort of patients with pre-existing cardiovascular issues over several years. It found that individuals without a diagnosed B12 deficiency but who were taking high-dose B12 supplements, often in combination with other B vitamins like B6 and folic acid, showed a statistically significant increase in the incidence of ischemic stroke compared to those who were taking a placebo. This wasn't a small isolated finding from a single lab. It has been corroborated by other research looking at similar populations, particularly those with kidney disease or diabetes. The researchers in these studies were meticulous. They carefully controlled for other known stroke risk factors like smoking, high blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and diabetes. And even after accounting for all of those powerful variables, the independent association with high-dose B12 remained. It's a correlation, yes, and science is always rightly cautious to definitively claim causation from these types of studies alone. But when multiple, large, well-designed studies all start pointing in the same unsettling direction, the medical and scientific communities are compelled to stop, take notice, and issue a warning. And that is exactly what is happening right now. The quiet consensus is building. We have been far too complacent about the more is better approach to vitamin supplementation, and the potential for real, tangible harm is greater than we ever imagined. This information can feel jarring, even unbelievable, because it directly contradicts decades of brilliant marketing and mainstream health advice. We've been conditioned to look for the highest milligram or microgram count on the supplement bottle, believing it offers the best value and the most potent effect. We see labels like high potency or maximum strength as marks of superior quality, but biology is rarely, if ever, that simple. The body is a system of exquisite balance, a state of dynamic equilibrium called homeostasis. Pushing one metabolic pathway too hard with a megadose of a single nutrient can create unforeseen and negative consequences on other interconnected systems. It's like trying to fix a complex Swiss watch by hitting one of its gears with a hammer. You're not helping, you're creating a different, potentially more dangerous problem. The cultural momentum behind supplementation is truly immense. It's driven by a multi-billion-dollar industry that profits from our deep-seated desire for a quick fix, for a sense of control over our health in a world that feels increasingly uncertain and chaotic. And vitamin B12 is an absolute superstar in that world. It's marketed as the simple, direct answer to modern plagues like fatigue, brain fog, and the general stresses of a busy life. The appeal is undeniably powerful. Who doesn't want more energy? Who doesn't want a sharper, more focused mind? But we have to start asking a difficult question. Have we been sold a story that serves the seller far more than it serves the buyer? When a study shows that people with perfectly normal B12 levels who choose to supplement with high doses have a demonstrably higher risk of stroke, it forces us to reconsider the entire paradigm. It strongly suggests that for the average person with a reasonably balanced diet, adding a high-dose B12 supplement isn't just unnecessary or a waste of money. It could be a dangerous gamble. A gamble with the most precious and irreplaceable asset we possess, our brain health. The purpose of this discussion is not to create fear around all vitamins. It is to introduce a necessary and long overdue level of nuance and profound respect for the power of the substances we put into our bodies. The hidden mechanism. So how can this possibly be happening? How can a vitamin, an essential nutrient our bodies cannot live without, potentially contribute to something as destructive and feared as a stroke? The answer lies not in the vitamin itself in its natural state, but in the unnaturally high dose and the specific biological context in which it's introduced to the body. The mechanism we're going to explore is a subtle but significant cascade of biological events. It's not a single simple action, but a chain reaction of interactions that can, in an already vulnerable system, tip the scales from stability to crisis. We have to start by thinking about our blood vessels, specifically the intricate network of arteries that carry oxygen-rich blood to every corner of our brain. For many people, especially as they age, or if they have certain lifestyle factors, these arteries can begin to develop a condition called atherosclerosis. This is a slow, insidious process where fatty deposits, cholesterol, cellular waste products, calcium, and fibrin, a key clotting material in the blood, build up in the inner lining of an artery. This buildup is collectively known as plaque. For a long time, the primary concern with plaque was a mechanical one, that it would grow so large it would physically narrow the artery and restrict blood flow, like a clog in a pipe. But we now understand that one of the greatest dangers is not necessarily the size of the plaque, but its stability. An unstable plaque is one that is soft, inflamed, and has a thin, fragile fibrous cap covering its lipid-rich inflammatory core. Think of it like a volcanic pimple on the inside of your artery wall. This type of plaque is a ticking time bomb. If that thin cap ruptures or erodes, the fatty, highly inflammatory contents are suddenly exposed to the flowing bloodstream. The body's powerful and immediate response is to perceive this as a severe injury and to form a blood clot or a thrombus to heal the rupture. If that clot is large enough, it can completely block the artery right where it formed. Or a piece of the clot can break off, travel downstream like a torpedo, and lodge in a smaller artery within the brain. In either devastating case, the result is the same: an ischemic stroke. The flow of blood and oxygen is abruptly cut off, and brain tissue, deprived of its lifeline, begins to die within minutes. So, the key to preventing this type of stroke is not just about preventing plaque buildup, but critically about keeping any existing plaque stable and non-inflamed. This is precisely where high-dose B12 supplementation enters the picture in a very concerning way. Remember, we are talking about pharmacological doses, not dietary ones. Emerging research strongly suggests that bombarding the system with massive amounts of synthetic B12 might interfere with other critical metabolic pathways, particularly those involving another B vitamin, folate, and an amino acid called homocysteine. For decades, we've known that high levels of homocysteine in the blood are a significant and independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, including heart attack and stroke. High homocysteine can damage the delicate lining of the arteries, the endothelium, promote chronic inflammation, and encourage abnormal blood clotting. All things that contribute to atherosclerosis and, crucially, to plaque instability. Traditionally, we've used B vitamins, including B12 and folate, to help lower homocysteine levels. And this is where the profound paradox lies. In a balanced physiological state, this process works beautifully. B12 is a crucial cofactor, a helper molecule in the enzymatic reaction that converts potentially dangerous homocysteine into a harmless and useful amino acid, methionine. It's a perfect example of elegant biological design. But what some of the new research proposes is a pro-oxidant effect when vitamin B12 is present in massive, unnatural excess. Instead of just smoothly facilitating the conversion of homocysteine, these megadoses might, in certain biochemical environments, actually promote oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is essentially a state of cellular chaos, an imbalance where there are too many volatile free radicals, unstable molecules that ricochet around, damaging cells, proteins, and DNA, and not enough antioxidants to neutralize them. Within a blood vessel, high oxidative stress is a primary driver of the very inflammation that makes atherosclerotic plaques unstable. It acts like a solvent, weakening that delicate fibrous cap and making it far more prone to rupture. So, the very supplement you might be taking to protect your heart and brain could, through this complex and entirely dose-dependent mechanism, be creating a more volatile and dangerous environment inside your most critical arteries. It's a classic, tragic case of a good thing becoming a bad thing when taken to an unphysiological extreme. Furthermore, there's another potential mechanism that researchers are actively investigating, which adds another layer of concern. It involves the direct interaction between high-dose B12 and the process of platelet aggregation. Platelets are the tiny, disc-shaped blood cells that act as the body's first responders. They rush to the site of an injury to clump together and form a clot. It's a life-saving process when you have a cut on your skin, but it's a life-threatening one when it happens inside an artery leading to your brain. Some cellular and animal studies have suggested that extremely high concentrations of B12 in the blood plasma might increase platelet reactivity, making them stickier and more likely to aggregate and form a clot. If an unstable plaque does rupture, this heightened platelet stickiness could lead to the formation of a much larger, more obstructive clot, much more quickly than would otherwise occur. It's like having a team of emergency responders who are so over-caffeinated and eager that they cause a massive 100-car pileup at the scene of a minor fender bender, shutting down the entire highway. The response becomes more dangerous than the initial problem. It's crucial to understand that these mechanisms are not happening in everyone who takes a B12 supplement. The risk is heavily dependent on the individual's underlying physiology, their pre-existing conditions, their genetics, and of course the dosage and form of the supplement. But the fact that these plausible biological pathways exist and are supported by emerging clinical data means we can no longer afford to be naive. The simple story of B12 is good for you has to be updated with a more complex and scientifically accurate chapter. The right amount of B12 from the right source is essential for you, but massive isolated doses may trigger unintended and harmful consequences in your vascular system. Defining the risk. This is perhaps the most important and practical part of our entire discussion. The information we've just covered is not meant to cause widespread panic for every person who has ever taken a B-complex vitamin. That would be an irresponsible and inaccurate oversimplification. The reality of medicine and human biology is that risk is rarely universal. It is specific, it is nuanced, and it is highly individualized. The critical question we must now answer with precision is, who specifically is most vulnerable? Who are the people for whom this potential link between high-dose B12 supplementation and ischemic stroke is not just a theoretical concern, but a clear and present danger? The research, thankfully, provides a surprisingly clear profile of the individuals who need to pay the most attention. The data does not suggest that a healthy 30-year-old with no underlying medical issues is putting themselves at significant risk by taking a standard multivitamin containing a reasonable amount of B12. The concern is highly concentrated in specific, well-defined populations where the cardiovascular system is already under some degree of stress, compromise, or pre-existing disease. First and foremost, the elderly are a primary group at risk. This is for a confluence of inescapable biological reasons. As we age, our vascular system naturally becomes less resilient and more prone to disease. The prevalence of atherosclerosis, the underlying plaque buildup, increases significantly with each passing decade. Many older adults are walking around with some degree of plaque in their arteries, even if it has never caused them any symptoms. Their blood vessels are less elastic, and their baseline level of systemic inflammation is often higher. Introducing a potentially pro-oxidant, pro-inflammatory agent in the form of high-dose B12 into this already fragile environment is like throwing a lit match into a tinder-dry forest. The potential for a small simmering problem to escalate into a major life-altering crisis is substantially higher. Beyond age alone, the risk becomes acutely amplified in individuals with specific pre-existing cardiovascular conditions. At the very top of this list is atrial fibrillation, or AFib. AFib is a condition characterized by an irregular and often very rapid heart rhythm. This chaotic beating can allow blood to pool and stagnate in the heart's upper chambers, leading to the formation of dangerous blood clots. These clots can then be pumped out of the heart, travel to the brain, and cause a severe, often fatal or disabling stroke. People with AFib are already at a 5-fold increased risk for stroke, and many are rightly placed on powerful anticoagulant medications, blood thinners, to manage this risk. Now, imagine adding a supplement that may increase platelet stickiness and promote clot formation into this already high-stakes equation. You could be working directly against the very therapy designed to protect you. Another major risk category is individuals with chronic kidney disease, CKD. The kidneys are master chemists, playing a vital role in filtering waste products from the blood and maintaining the body's overall biochemical balance. When kidney function is impaired, the body's ability to regulate things like minerals, electrolytes, and yes, even water-soluble vitamins is severely compromised. While healthy kidneys might efficiently excrete massive amounts of excess B12, diseased kidneys may not. This can lead to the vitamin accumulating in the blood to far higher and more sustained concentrations than would be seen in a person with healthy renal function, even with the same supplement dose. This creates a state of chronic overdose. Furthermore, patients with CKD often have what's called a uremic state, which is inherently pro-inflammatory and pro-oxidative. They also have an exceptionally high burden of vascular calcification and aggressive atherosclerosis. In this population, the addition of a high-dose supplement that could potentially exacerbate oxidative stress and plaque instability is particularly dangerous. In fact, some of the most concerning studies highlighting the increased risk of adverse cardiovascular events, including stroke, from high-dose B vitamins were conducted specifically in CKD patients. A history of a transient ischemic attack, or TIA, is another critical red flag that cannot be ignored. A TIA is often called a mini-stroke or a warning stroke. It's a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain that produces real stroke-like symptoms, but resolves without causing permanent damage. However, a TIA is a massive warning sign from your body. It is an undeniable indication that you have underlying vascular disease that is advanced enough to produce a clot and cause a blockage. Roughly 1/3 of people who have a TIA will go on to have a major, debilitating stroke within a year if the underlying issues are not aggressively addressed. For someone in this precarious position, taking any substance that could potentially destabilize existing plaques or promote clotting is truly playing with fire. Finally, we must consider anyone with established atherosclerotic disease, even if they haven't had a specific event like a heart attack or stroke. This includes people who have been diagnosed with coronary artery disease, blockages in the heart's arteries, or peripheral artery disease, blockages in the arteries of the legs. The presence of significant plaque in one major part of the vascular tree means it's highly likely to be present elsewhere, including the vital carotid and vertebral arteries that supply the brain. These individuals are walking around with the very substrate, the unstable plaques, that we've identified as being vulnerable. For them, the absolute priority is plaque stabilization through proven therapies. The key takeaway here is one of context. The risk is not in the vitamin. It's in the intersection of the high dose with a vulnerable biology. Smarter sources. Given the potential risks we have just outlined, particularly for vulnerable individuals, the path forward becomes remarkably clear. It is not about abandoning vitamin B12 altogether. That would be a dangerous and foolish mistake. B12 is an absolutely essential nutrient, and a true diagnosed deficiency is a serious medical condition that must be properly treated under medical supervision. The path forward is about a profound shift in our mindset, away from the more is better, high-dose supplementation philosophy, and returning to a food-first philosophy. It's about seeking and obtaining our nutrients in the way our bodies were designed to receive them, from whole, unprocessed foods, where they exist in natural balance with thousands of other compounds that work in synergy. This approach is not only safer, but it is fundamentally more effective for promoting long-term, resilient health. The question is no longer, how can I get the most B12, but rather, how can I ensure I am getting adequate B12 from the safest and most intelligent sources? The beautiful thing about the food-first philosophy is that it has built-in safety mechanisms that protect you from the dangers of pharmacological megadoses. It is virtually impossible to consume toxic or harmful levels of vitamin B12 through diet alone. Your body's natural appetite, digestion, and absorption mechanisms provide an elegant and effective system of regulation. You are not bypassing these intelligent systems. You are working in harmony with them. So, where do we find these smarter, safer sources of B12? The answer is almost exclusively in animal products and specially fortified foods. Vitamin B12 is produced by microorganisms like bacteria, not by plants or animals themselves. Animals accumulate it by eating foods contaminated with these bacteria or through their own gut flora, and it becomes stored in their tissues, particularly the liver and muscles. For non-vegetarians, the sources are plentiful, delicious, and effective. One of the richest and most bioavailable sources of B12 is organ meat, especially beef liver. While it's not a staple in the modern Western diet, it is a nutritional powerhouse. A small 3-ounce serving of beef liver can contain over 70 micrograms of B12, which is more than 2,000% of the recommended daily value. Other excellent sources include shellfish, particularly clams and mussels. A single small serving of clams can provide an incredible amount of B12. Fatty fish like wild-caught sardines, salmon, and trout are also fantastic choices. Crucially, not only do they provide a healthy dose of B12, but they are also packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which are themselves profoundly beneficial for brain and cardiovascular health, actively working to reduce inflammation, lower triglycerides, and support vascular integrity. For those who regularly consume meat and poultry, maintaining adequate B12 levels is generally not a significant concern. A serving of grass-fed beef, a chicken breast, or a piece of lamb will contribute significantly to your daily needs. Eggs and dairy products like milk, yogurt, and cheese are also very good sources. A couple of pasture-raised eggs for breakfast and a serving of plain Greek yogurt as a snack can go a very long way toward meeting your daily requirements. The key is variety. By eating a diverse diet that includes different types of animal products, you create a robust nutritional foundation that doesn't rely on a single isolated nutrient from a pill. But what about vegetarians and vegans? This is a crucial and non-negotiable consideration, as B12 is the one nutrient that is reliably absent from a whole foods, plant-based diet. For this group, supplementation is not just an option, it is an absolute necessity to prevent serious health issues like megaloblastic anemia and irreversible nerve damage. However, the principles of intelligent supplementation still apply with full force. The goal is not to blast the body with a massive high-potency dose just in case. The goal is to take a sensible physiologic maintenance level dose to prevent deficiency. A vegan or strict vegetarian doesn't need 1,000 or 5,000 micrograms a day. A much smaller, more physiologic dose of 25 to 100 micrograms daily, or a larger dose, such as 1,000 micrograms taken only twice a week, is generally more than sufficient to maintain healthy levels without creating the massive unnatural blood concentrations that are implicated in the research we've discussed. It's about supplementing to sufficiency, not to wild excess. Another excellent option, particularly for those who eat a mostly plant-based diet, is fortified foods. These are foods that have had specific nutrients, including B12, added to them during processing. Many plant-based milks, like soy, almond, and oat milk, are now routinely fortified with B12. Many breakfast cereals are another common example. Nutritional yeast, a deactivated yeast with a cheesy, nutty flavor, is a favorite in the vegan community and is often heavily fortified with a whole spectrum of B vitamins, including B12. A tablespoon or two sprinkled over a salad, soup, or popcorn can easily provide your entire daily requirement. Reading labels becomes a key skill here. Your action plan. We have covered some complex and potentially unsettling ground. We've talked about the shocking link, the hidden mechanism, the specific risks, and the smarter sources. But knowledge on its own is not enough. Knowledge only becomes true power when it is translated into deliberate, focused action. This final section is about creating your concrete, non-negotiable action plan. This is how you take everything we've discussed and use it to build a stronger, more resilient defense for your health. This is about moving from a passive consumer of supplements to an active, informed guardian of your own well-being. The very first step, and this is the most critical, is to stop self-prescribing. Walk to your medicine cabinet or your kitchen counter right now, look at your supplements, and ask yourself a simple, honest question. Did a qualified medical professional who knows my personal health history specifically recommend I take this supplement at this specific dose for a diagnosed problem? If the answer is no, if you are taking high-dose B12 or any other high-potency supplement because you saw an advertisement, read an article online, or got a recommendation from a well-meaning but unqualified friend, your first action is to pause. The era of casual, unguided supplementation, especially with high-potency products, needs to end today. The second and non-negotiable step is to schedule a conversation with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider. This is not something to put off. When you go to this appointment, you need to be prepared to have an effective, collaborative conversation. Do not just show up and say, "Should I stop taking B12?" You need to provide specific context. Bring your supplement bottles with you, all of them. Show your doctor the exact product, the exact dose you are taking, and tell them how often you take it. Then you can frame the conversation using the information you've learned. You can say something like, "I've been reading some of the emerging research suggesting a potential link between high-dose B12 supplementation and increased ischemic stroke risk, particularly in certain populations. Given my age and my personal health history," mentioning any conditions like high blood pressure, kidney issues, a past TIA, or AFib, "I want to partner with you to reassess if this supplement is truly necessary and safe for me." Your doctor can then make an informed recommendation. They may want to run a blood test to check your actual serum B12 and homocysteine levels. A blood test is data. It replaces guesswork with facts. If you are genuinely deficient, supplementation is appropriate, and your doctor can prescribe the correct, safe dose. If your levels are normal or high, the decision to stop becomes clear and evidence-based. The third step in your action plan is to embrace the food-first philosophy we discussed, starting today. Begin actively looking for and incorporating B12-rich or B12-fortified foods into your diet. Make a specific grocery list. If you eat meat, perhaps you plan to have salmon one night this week and eggs for breakfast twice. If you're a vegetarian, maybe you decide to switch to a B12 fortified plant milk for your morning coffee or cereal. If you're vegan, you might buy some nutritional yeast to try on your pasta. This is not about a radical overnight diet overhaul. It's about making small, deliberate, and consistent choices. This is proactive, preventative medicine in its purest and most delicious form. Finally, the fourth step is a mental one. It is about fundamentally changing your relationship with the concept of health itself. True health is not about collecting a cabinet full of supplements. It is about making a series of informed, intelligent choices day after day. It's about cultivating a healthy skepticism toward marketing claims and a deep respect for your own complex biology. Become a critical thinker. When you see a product promising a miracle cure or a massive energy boost in a bottle, let a quiet alarm bell ring in your mind. Ask questions. Who is selling this? What is the evidence? What is the dose? And most importantly, does my individual body actually need this? This shift in mindset from passive belief to active inquiry is the ultimate act of self-empowerment. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your own health journey. You are no longer just a passenger on a trip dictated by health fads and advertising budgets. You are the navigator, charting your own course based on solid evidence, professional guidance, and a deep understanding of your own unique system. This four-step plan, pause and assess, consult your doctor with specific information, adopt a food-first approach, and cultivate a critical mindset, is your comprehensive strategy for safety and resilience.